Hello, sports fans. It's Friday, November 8th. Welcome to Cleats by Dre. I am Dre. Let's talk some sports. Oh wow, I cannot believe it's been a week. A week since my last pod. I think I got the itch. I can't it feels like forever since we talked about narcissism and NBA team performance. But here we are, and I think the new schedule will work all right. I mean, at some points I might do a midweek post, but anyway, what a week. The baseball season has died down, right? The Dodgers are the champs. But this episode will really focus on the offseason. And honestly, we call it the hot stove. The MLB offseason is tons of fun, tons of big players, lots going on for the Mets and the Yanks. We're going to do a full review on this episode of the top free agents available and put together our dream call for who we'd like to see those Metskis, those Petski Metskis, OMG, Grimace Mets end up with for 2025. But first, before we get there, big news of the last week was, of course, the election. It is not a politics podcast. It is a sports podcast. I'll acknowledge it briefly, though, right? And I'll just say, I think you all know my biases and preferences. I was disappointed in the outcome in the presidential race. If I was being real, though, there are issues and fissures deeper with our country and our population, whether it's everyone living in their own echo chambers of consuming media, whether through the TV, through online, through a neighbor, or the widening inequality. None of these are going to be solved just based on an election result. So hopefully we all find a way to really work on those, to get into dialogue with each other. We're better together. But given it was the election, you can have a little bit of fun, right? Some of the impacts from an election standpoint on sports. And I have 3 notes here. 1, college football. So I know I did a pretty big episode on the whole Matthew Sluka NIL piece in college football about a few weeks back at this point. There's been quite a bit going on with the different lawsuits and settlements. And so some of what I'm reading is, the schools are getting close to a target, really kind of a salary cap, to manage the NIL piece, which is one of the things that needs to come out of the lawsuit. Maybe I'll do a pod on that another time to go a little deeper on it. But some of the biggest news is a senator winning re-election in Texas, Ted Cruz. He's pretty staunch in terms of making college football reform a top priority as he takes more of an active role. Maybe it's on the Senate Commerce Committee. I'm not a political insider. I'm just reading stuff and giving it back to you. But do look for more kind of announcements and as I believe, some of the conferences try to push more to antitrust kind of exemption that the professional leagues have. Anyway, what I was reading was with some of the schools were pleased with that part of the election result. So there's something there. Stay tuned in college football. Number 2, more of a jokesy thing. Betting markets are rampant now, even in presidential elections. I had a chuckle when they started coming out with 2028 odds, and someone joked on X that, the quarterback of their team has better odds to be president in 2028 than his team does to win the Super Bowl this year. And that's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers showed up as plus 3,000. That's 30-1 to be president in 2028. I know he flirted with the VP run under Kennedy at one point, RFK Jr. this year. I don't know where plus 3,000 comes from. Is that a real thing? Could he really put something like that together. Again, apologies to Jets fans once again that they have to just deal with that kind of circus-like stuff. And the third election impact, and I cheat when I say sports, I mean games. Puzzles stock is going up. Puzzles. I needed something on election night to kind of like keep my attention while I was in the background following along, keep me steady. And I opened up a 1,000-piece puzzle that my sister had gotten for my 7-year-old for his birthday. We never thought he'd be able to do it. He's actually really good at puzzles. And me and him are going at it now. Taking a little break. We still do the baseball pretty much every day. A little less sunlight. But we're hitting that puzzle up. It's fun. It's 1,000 pieces. It's Lego characters. Kind of calming, kind of nice. Maybe we're in a puzzle phase, in our puzzle era. So go find your puzzle when there's maybe a little less sports on, right? No more baseball. Basketball's intermittent. Football's kind of just on weekends. Find your puzzle era. Okay. We're going to get to the hot stove and the off-season stuff. We'll definitely get into more Knicks as the season gets along. Little bit of growing pains as a team. We kind of saw that coming. Giants and Jets we're not going to talk about much unless they find something to talk about. Notre Dame football, some games starting to come up, season winding down, but we'll get into more on that. And I want to bring in Duke basketball at some point too. They had their preview, but we're going to focus on one topic. We're going to do MLB hot stove coming up to you next. All right, the MLB offseason is here. What I kind of love about the MLB offseason, free agency starts right away. There's no set periods like the NFL has, NBA has. It's just free market. Guys are talking. Scott Boras is making his silly circus ringleader quotes. And there's a beauty to like the no salary cap in MLB. That you don't know where the contracts can go. You don't know how high they can go. There's no maximum for a player. There's no franchise tagging. I guess there is there's a qualifying offer. That's different. But something about the MLB, I love the offseason. So the activity we're going to do, and I'm going to do this, of course, through the eyes of the Mets. But hopefully if you're a fan of other teams, you can hear me talk about some of the players that are available. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break down what's left of the Mets roster. Then I'll take some help from Fangraphs to go through. I went through all the top 50 free agents that Ben Clemens from Fangraphs put out there with his predicted contract. And based on the budget that I think the Mets will have, which who knows, I'll piece together who I would want, or my dream one is, and we'll end up where we end up. And we'll follow along through the offseason as the Mets come through on my dream. Before we get there, even a word right about the Mets, what we'll say, lots of money coming off the book. I'll go into specifics a little bit later. But obviously coming off a really strong year. We've talked about it a lot, right? Game 6 of the NLCS. But will they rest on their laurels? Will they just run it back with the same team? Or do they take this opportunity to go even higher? It's a big offseason coming up. Big names. So, let's look at it. We'll go through the Mets roster, right? So starting with the free agents that are now gone. The Latin pop star himself, Jose Iglesias, he's a free agent, as well as Pete Alonso at first base. Harrison Bader, JD Martinez, Jesse Winker, all hitters that made somewhat of an impact. They're gone unless we bring them back. The pitching staff, too, kind of gutted. Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, Jose Quintana, 3/5 of that rotation that really came on the second half of the year. Phil Maton was let go. Ottavino is a free agent. Brooks Raley, who got injured early in the year. Drew Smith and Ryan Stanek, all gone. So lots to patch up. Now, what's left of the team, if I look at the starters, and I like to think of it as a lineup and position. Obviously, you got Lindor at shortstop. I hope he leads off again next year. And then in my perfect lineup so far, I have a gap, right? I don't know who, we know Vientos is going to start at first or third. I don't know who's going to start at the other first or third. So between that and between a right fielder, right, because I have Marte at DH. So I guess what I'll say is I think I have 6 starters back for the Mets. Lindor shortstop, Vientos at first and third, Nimmo on left, Marte in DH, Jeff McNeil at second, and Francisco Alvarez at catcher. But I'd really like Lindor to lead off. And honestly, Vientos, Nimmo, Marte, McNeil, Alvarez, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I know they hit Vientos in the 2-hole. He does not get on base enough. He strikes out too much. He got hit on fire in the playoffs. But I'd like to see him 4th or less. Brandon Nimmo is not a top 2 guy anymore in the lineup, especially if last year is his new norm. Doesn't get on base enough. He needs to be a bottom half of the lineup hitter. Marte has dropped off. The only reason he's still here is he has 1 year left in his contract for $20 million. If they try to move him, they're going to have to eat some money. That could be an option, right? Maybe there's a guy, I'll foreshadow, maybe a Jock Peterson you want to bring in as a full-time DH. Less than $20 million. But for now, let's keep Marte in DH. I don't think you want to run him out and right as much anymore. McNeil, coming at $15 million, still serviceable at second. And Alvarez, Stearns has already said between Alvarez and Torrens at catcher, they feel okay there. And I guess, Alvarez is a prospect developmental, not a ton of catchers out there in the market. That's who you're going to go with. Depth pieces, Tyrone Taylor is back. He was our starting center fielder in the playoffs. I don't think you want that necessarily, but definitely as a 4th outfielder, we'll go with Tyrone Taylor. But depending what's out there, he could be your center fielder. Now, what's really impressive about the Mets or promising about the Mets coming forward, a lot more depth in the minors, right? We all saw Luis Angel Acuna, right? And he could play middle infield or even the outfield. We saw Brett Beatty, who hit the ball in AAA towards the end of the year. So third base, he was playing second. He could play outfield too. Ronnie Mauricio was set to challenge for big league at-bats this year. Injured over the offseason, missed the whole year, but he's another middle infielder, third baseman, outfielder. And then the prospects coming up. Jet Williams is our top number 1 prospect. Injured most of the year, came back on fire for like 20 at-bats in AAA. Between, great eye, speedster, middle infielder, center fielder again. And then Drew Gilbert as well is pretty close. A lot of time in AAA, kind of hit or miss, hot and cold. But the team thinks highly of him. Could be a center fielder. Could be a right fielder. But these guys are close. And so that's good depth. That maybe that underpins kind of what the Mets do, where maybe they don't want to go too strong in some of the spots and leave chances for these guys to compete and win a spot. That's a lineup, and we'll recap overall what I think our needs are. But let's go to the pitching staff, which is decimated, right? I mean, if you're talking starters, Kodai Senga is back, and who knows? Hopefully he's healthy. He really missed the whole year, and he was great 2 years ago. But yeah, right now you got to pencil him in at number 1 on the rotation. David Peterson pitched really well, right? He deserves. I think he deserves a real spot in the rotation, not to have to compete for it again. I don't like him as a top 2 or even top 3. I kind of think him as a number 4 right now, but he's there. Some other depth, Tyler McGill's back. I don't want to slot him in our rotation. I'd like him as like a 6, like a swing guy as depth. Paul Blackburn also. Interesting with the injury that he has. $6 million. The Mets could choose to. I think that's the estimated arbitration. The Mets could waive that possibly. I might do that, but then again, with pitching depth, You can never have enough. And in the bullpen, it's big guy Edwin Diaz. He's looking to be back, and man, he pitched well in the postseason. He really scared us during the year, but he pitched well in the postseason. You got Reed Garrett at the back end of that bullpen that proved to be an arm. Jose Buto struggled in the postseason, but definitely pitched well all year, where he deserves a spot. And maybe they try to stretch him out. Maybe he's found something as a reliever. Who else am I missing here? I'm going through my list. I didn't put him on it, but Deadnil Nunez, of course, injured towards the end of the year. He was really good when he was pitching, so we could pencil him in. I think he was probably on a minimum contract. Then in the minors, you got some prospects coming up. Brandon Sproat, our top pitching prospect, seems pretty close. Struggled a little bit in AAA when he got to pitch, but he's 24. He should be able to challenge. Christian Scott is going to be missed the whole year for Tommy John, so you can't count on him. Blade Tidwell is the other guy, 2023, that is going to be pushing up. But again, you can't count on these guys, right? These are guys that will be part of your team. You just don't know when exactly. But really, a lot of holes to fill. A lot of holes. I have a shopping list. Before I do a shopping list, let's go through the numbers, though. So the Mets have a projected tax payroll of $172 million. That's just the way that they calculated based on including deferments. That's pretty low. A lot of money's come off the books, right? All that money they threw at, to pay off Scherzer and pay off Verlander and the teams that took them in the trades. So if they're at $172 million, I don't see the magic thing. I don't know how much they're going to spend. I think it's a lot, right? Steve Cohen. I think it could be more. He sends emojis to Scott Boras with however many olives are in his martini glass, or maybe that's the other way around. Or Boras is trying to get him to give $300 million for Carlos Correa. That was that a year or two ago. So who knows how much he's going to spend? But for this exercise, right? Because I want to make it real. Let's say he'll go up to $343 million. That was the 2023 payroll. So 343 minus 172. Who can do the math? Oh man, I should be able to do that. $171 million, basically double what it is now. So let's go shopping for that. Let's go shopping. Where can we best spend $171 million? Here's my shopping list. One, it's not the first one's not a position. It's Juan Soto, and we'll analyze whether we think we want Mr. Soto for the price he's going to come in at. My next one is more on base percentage, guys. I didn't say a position, right? It could be first base, third base, outfield. I think this team you need to get guys on base, guys avoiding outs for some of the sluggers and some of the guys down in the lineup to knock them in. That's just how I think you win. You win in baseball, right? I'm still that Moneyball, Billy Bean kind of thinking guy. Pitching, you need one high-end starter, one mid-tier starter, one fifth starter. 2 high-leverage arms in the bullpen. Great if one of them's a lefty. And you need a center field kind of defensive stopgap. You don't want to go too all in because you got guys coming up. You don't want to block them. But you need someone, or else it's going to be Taylor, which it could be, but maybe there's someone better out there. That's my shopping list. So to do the shopping, and now the part that those not just interested in the Mets might be interested in. What I did is pulled heavily from a Fangraphs article, right? Top 50 free agents available. Great article by Ben Clemens. Whole staff helps him out here. He lists the top 50 available, and he gives a contract prediction. So I'm not doing negotiations in this exercise. I'm taking that contract and saying that's what the contract will be. Do I want to pick that contract as part of the pie that's going to make the rest, bring the payroll whole? Got it? Hope that's clear. And as I talk through it, maybe it'll become even clearer. All right, so let's bang through this list. So obviously the number one is Juan Soto, right fielder, formerly of the Yankees. I won't go into the details of Soto. You all know him. He's an excellent player. Has been in the postseason, in the regular season. Hits has an incredible eye. Hits for power. Plays every day. He's 26. It's interesting. The prediction here for contract is 12 years, $576 million. It's 48 million a year. What I've been hearing, that seems like it's too low. Just what you hear on the radio. But for the exercise, we're gonna assume that's what it is. And also, I actually wouldn't be shocked if, as an aside, if him and Boris go for a short term deal with crazy high, average annual value, like $150 million for 2 years. Like he would bet on himself. Like, why not? And then get more. Then I wouldn't be shocked, and that would make me more excited, of course, because of the challenges of long term contracts. But I wanted to be contrarian here and say, let's not go after Soto. Like, what's the history with these really long deals? And the reality is, I think the whole really long kind of big contracts, and we'll focus on hitters, they've mostly worked out lately. Maybe the analysis or evaluation of players has improved. But think of recent examples: Mookie Betts, Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Corey Seager, Fernando Tatis Jr., Aaron Judge, Francisco Lindor, Freddie Freeman, and Otani. Some of those are really early into those deals. There's no regrets there, right? None. Now, also, some of the areas where there are regrets are, for example, George Springer, Chris Bryant, Xander Bogaerts, Jason Hayward, Giancarlo Stanton, you could say, right? Based on what kind of player he is now. Nolan Arenado, might be some regrets. Mike Trout, I hate to say that. Might be some regrets with the contract he signed recently, given his injuries. Pujols is the famous example, right? But he was 32 when he signed that 10-year deal with the Angels. But I think a guy's also like Prince Fielder going back. But these are guys. This is a longer time ago. The names I gave recently in the last 5 years, and maybe that's what it is. Like, they're early in the contract still. They're working, and also those guys I mentioned at the top, Hall of Fame level players. Springer, Bryant, Bogarts, Hayward. No one ever confused them for Hall of Famers. So maybe the lesson is, you got a surefire Hall of Famer, you don't hesitate to give that big deal. So of course I'm taking Juan Soto into this deal. Of course I would love to get him at that price based on what I hear, based on the competition that is for him. But yes, that we're pulling that Soto money in. I'm gonna keep a tab on this, and I'll help keep everybody updated as we go. That's $48 million a year that we're giving Soto. Going down the list, two players that he puts next: Willie Adames and Alex Bregman, both for around 28, 29 million a year, over 5 years. And I'm not in love with these guys. Adames, low on base percentage. If you're for the Mets, moving him off shortstop takes off some of his value. He was a nothing factor in the playoffs. And I thought I'd really want Bregman, right? I want high on base percentage. But his walk percentage regressed considerably this year, from 12% to 6%. That's a decline. I don't want to sign up for that now. And he also just worries me as a guy, maybe not built for New York. Doesn't seem like he'd stand up to the scrutiny. He seems comfortable in Houston in the South. I don't know. It's my gut. We go into a pitcher run here. The next top free agents. He has Corbin Burns, right? $28 million a year, 7 years. That's a big deal. And I guess he's the top consensus pitcher, but he's regressing a bit too. Postseason he's been okay. I don't want to give that big of a contract to a pitcher that, I don't know, doesn't feel like a surefire guy, And look, luckily Stearns knows better than anybody, so we'll be able to tell there. But I want the next guy. I want the guy that's a free agent again. I want Blake Snell. So Blake Snell, they have for $30 million a year, over 4 years, $120 million. I like that. I like that shorter contract. I like the high risk, reward player. He gets injured a bunch. Sometimes he doesn't go deep into games. But man, he flashed his best this year. The no-hitter, the run when he came back from injury. He flashed that ceiling, difference maker. I'll gladly take a $30 million for Snell, and I got my number one starter, or maybe number two if Senga comes back to what he was. All right, so 48 and 30, that's 78. So I'm already over close to halfway through my spending. The next few pitchers, Max Fried and Jack Flaherty. Fried just probably going to get too much. $28 million a year for 5 years. Would love to take him from the Braves, but he has weak postseason stats. I'm never really afraid of him on the Braves. And Flaherty, I don't know. I saw a couple blow-ups. It's hard to give him. He doesn't have the pedigree as much. Not into that. Next, we have Ha-Seong Kim, shortstop. We have Gleyber Torres. We're not in the market for those guys. Teoscar Hernandez and Santander, the outfielders. They're about $20 million a year, 5 years. We're just we're going Soto. We don't need those guys. Maybe they're playing. Maybe they're the backups, and yeah, we could use some pop in the outfield otherwise. But we'll stick to Soto path. Big one next is Pete Alonso at first base. All right, our clutch guy. $20 million a year. That's it. For 7 years though. $140 million being sought. He's at Boris as an agent. I worry Pete, and it's hard because he's a guy that's proven to do it in New York, and you don't always you hear so much on the other side. It just feels like this year is a little bit of a decline across the board for him. I would rather high on-base percentage guys. I'm going to pass on this for now, and I could regret this easily. But we're taking emotion out of this. We're going to dip into the pitching market. We have to. So I almost went after Shane Bieber. I know coming off the Tommy John middle of next year, but the contract projection is $20 per year for 2 years. So think of it as $40 million for 1.5 years. He has a high ceiling, but the Mets have too many red flags already. Too many red flags with like Senga. We can't. We don't have the luxury, I think, of the pitching staff to not take proven guys. So we're gonna bring back one of our proven guys and Sean Manaea. $20 per year for 3 years. I know Manaea's getting up there in age. I think he's in the low to mid 30s. But this guy, he was strong down the stretch. He pitched as well as he could until he ran out of gas against the Dodgers. But he was our ace. Bring him back as our number 3 starter. I'll bank on the kind of shift he made towards the middle of the year and that he found something new. And also, it seemed like a really good kind of clubhouse, really good chemistry guy. We're not going to bring back a lot of the guys from the Grimace, the OMG Mets. So good to have one of them where we can get them. So Manaea for 20, we'll sync it up. We're going to pass on Yusei Kikuchi. But then we're going to take the next guy here in this list, Nathan Eovaldi. Yeah, playoff proven with the Red Sox or the Rangers. 20 per year for 3 years. And now we have our 4th starter or 5th starter if you count Peterson. Yeah, that's a nice short deal. Playoff proven. Absolutely would take Eovaldi. And we're running a little short on money. So we're 48, 30, 20, 20, 78. So 118. All right, so we got about 50 or so to spend. Let's keep going. We're not going to go with Christian Walker. Productive first baseman for the Diamondbacks. 34 though, and I didn't notice some decline coming there. Really wanted to go for this next guy, but just too much. So Tanner Scott. We need relievers. We need lefties. Projection of $15 million per year for 4 years. I mean, that's closer money. We got Diaz. We can't do that with Tanner also. Blake Trinan is next. The Dodger, really the best reliever the Dodgers had this past year. Again, 15 per year for 2 years. Just a little too much. Not interested in the next group either. Tyler O'Neill, Jurickson Profar. I like Profar's on base percentage. We just can't fit him in any spot on the Mets roster right now. Kind of play, Nimmo in left field. Kind of play the same position. We're kind of good at starter now because, the next guy is Nick Martinez, Walker Buehler, Nick Pivetta, Luis Severino, our guy. They're all in the 15 per year mark. I like spending up. I like the guys we got earlier, Snell, Manaea, Eovaldi. Jeff Hoffman as a reliever might get a 3-year deal. No thank you. Clay Holmes, no thank you for 2 years. I kind of want to shop in the 1-year market. Who will take a 1-year deal? Here's Jock Peterson, by the way, 14 per year for 2 years. We just got Soto. If we're sticking on the Marte, we don't have space for Jock, even though I'd love him versus righties. Oh, this starting pitcher market, Scherzer, Charlie Morton, and Justin Verlander, all 1-year guys for 17 to 19 million, will pass. Andrew Haney, Frankie Montas will pass. Trevor Williams, Alex Cobb will pass. All a bunch of starters. And here we go. Here's our relievers for 1 year. So, drum roll. The back of our bullpen, setting up for Diaz. We're bringing in Aroldis Chapman. $10 million per year for 1 year. Yeah. We're going to go Chapman to Diaz if you want to drive New York sports fans crazy. The truth is, Chapman has been pretty good for the Pirates last year. And I think he might have been a year before, too. He still throws hard. I have no problem for a 1-year deal, $10 million. Take a shot. Kenley Jansen is next. I've never been a fan. And then we'll pick up the next guy, too, Kirby Yates. For $10 million a year for 1 year. He just had an incredible year for the Rangers. 40 saves, ERA below 1.25. Yeah, if he can go for that much, 10 for 1, put him and Chapman in the 7th and the 8th, we're cooking. We got the leveraged relievers going. But let's stop there. That's that's all the money I could spend for right now. That's about 42 guys we got through. Who's left on the list that might be of interest? Jose Quintana goes for $12 million per year for 2 years. Thank you, Quintana. We're going to try to upgrade you a little bit. But yeah, fun exercise, right? So to recap, we took Soto for 48 a year, Snell 30, Manaea 20, Eovaldi 20, Chapman 10, Yates 10. Very focused on pitching, if you notice, because we got those guys in the hitting depth. That total comes to 138. So let's look where we are, right? If we put Soto in right field, he hits third. We still have a gap at first base, third base. Well, here's what we're doing. We're doing trades also here. And I'm going to follow along with Anthony McCarron of SNY because we're going to ship out Jeff McNeil. A little bit of that roster will ship out. I like McNeil. I think he could be a great utility guy for us with his outfield ability too. But you got to give to get. And we're also going to give our number 1 prospect, Jet Williams, and our number 4 prospect, Ryan Clifford. They're going to Toronto for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Yes, the stud first baseman who has disappointed some years, but he got hot at least the second half of last year. Hit .320 with a .390 on base percentage, over .500 slugging. Blue Jays are going nowhere right now. Guerrero's got 1 year left. They haven't extended him yet. And sure, the Mets would have to extend him if they get him, or let him walk like Soto might walk with the Yankees. But that is an elite on base percentage guy to get. We're making that deal. And so we're giving Guerrero first base, moving keeping Vientos at third base. So we go shortstop Lindor, we go first base Vladdy Guerrero, right field Juan Soto, third base Vientos, left field Nimmo, first lefties and righties, DH Marte, second base is now open. Let's start Acuna there. He showed something. Maybe we bring back Jose Iglesias now because we have a little bit of money still. We'll put Alvarez at catcher, and we'll do Ty Taylor. He'll start in center field. Some of the younger guys are ready. We need a little more kind of depth in the outfield. Maybe we bring back Jesse Winker. Great vibes, great lefty bat. Even better if he could play the outfield. But start feeling some depth because we had some money. I mean, Vladdy's making 28 this year. Jeff McNeil's making 15, so that's 13 more to our 138, so 151. So we still have 20 million to spare. I mentioned Iglesias, I mentioned Winker. There'll be other guys. But yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And so with that lineup, and then our starters, right? We have Senga, Snell, Manaea, Peterson, Evaldi. Our bullpen, we just added Chapman and Yates to it. Pretty good. How do we do on our shopping list? We got Soto. More on base percentage guys. We got Vlad Guerrero. We got a high-end starter in Snell, a mid-tier in Manaea, a fifth starter in Evaldi, the two higher leverage arms, Chapman and Yates. Center field defensive stopgap. Hey, if Harrison Bader's still hanging around, we'll take him back. We'll bring some of the good vibes back from last year. Otherwise, we got Taylor. And the most important thing I like, I'm in fantasy world here. I know some of you are rolling your eyes. You want to follow the Dodgers model. The Dodgers model, when they go to free agency, they focus on elites. They don't mess around with the mid-tier. They sign Freddie Freeman. They sign Ohtani. They trade for Betts and extend him. You could argue Teoscar is a little bit of mid-tier, but he's a high-end. He's an all-star. You when you go into free agency, because you're going to overpay, you make sure they're elites. And this is now the Mets can be elites in the East, in the NL. It'll be the Latin version of the Dodgers, right? You go Lindor, Vlad Guerrero, Soto. And you figure it out in the bottom of the lineup. That's what works. I mean, that's a strong murderer's row. Let's make it happen. So that's it. That's the review. I know I'm a little bit in fantasy land here. I know a lot of these contract projections might go up, but I appreciate the exercise. It made it quick for me to do this. There's lots of reasons, lots of things. Some of these guys aren't going to want to come to New York. I can't know that. But, man, with the money the Mets have available, they have a chance to make a splash. And so I hope they do. So let's keep track. Hopefully some of this comes through. All right. Thanks for listening, Cleats fans. If you like this, please rate, please review. Please share to someone that might be missing out on some baseball and might want to talk through some hot stove. Talk to you next time.